Seemingly out of nowhere last night, Chris Paul was released by the Los Angeles Clippers in one of the most confusing moves I've seen in a long time. This is one of the best, if not the best player in franchise history. Someone who in his last year made a point to come back to Los Angeles to play for this team, and not more than a couple months in the season, he is released seemingly out of nowhere. Now, the Clippers have been struggling with one of the oldest teams in the league, sitting at 5-16, and obviously not owning their own first round pick. In fact, OKC owning their first round pick has been a massive talking point of the early NBA season so far. And Chris Paul, just a couple weeks after announcing that he will officially retire, starting what is basically his retirement tour around the NBA, is no longer a part of this team. I'm here to tell you right now, whoever they find that's going to replace Chris Paul is not going to make this team better. There are much larger systematic issues with this team for them to turn into a winning team. But this is just once again another example of the Los Angeles Clippers taking one of their franchise players and treating them very poorly on their way out of town. Again, this is one of your best players in franchise history who came back. He was just on the San Antonio Spurs, who I'm sure would have loved to have him as a vet for another year with Victor Wembanyama and all those young guards. Even if he wasn't playing a ton, which Chris Paul was playing 14 minutes a game for the Clippers, it doesn't seem like he was looking for a big role anymore in the NBA. I think he would have been fine if he knew this was going to be the outcome to stay in San Antonio. This is someone who's won at every single stop he's been at. I think many teams across the NBA would have signed him and should look at signing him to either build a culture, looking at a team like maybe the Pelicans or the Hornets, who maybe just need a culture reset, and he can come in to finish the season with them if that's something he's willing to do. He could be that extra vet that comes in for a championship team. I'm thinking of the Minnesota Timberwolves. I would love my team to go pick him up. I think any other contender would and should look at Chris Paul. Again, even if he's only giving you 14 minutes a game, that should be enough that he is worth the minimum contract and the roster spot, in my personal opinion. But again, I think this goes back to major systematic issues with the Clippers. You have one of the oldest teams in the NBA, and James Harden is looking like he's hit a second prime somehow at age 36. You have Kawhi Leonard, who has been relatively healthy so far this season. Zubac has been healthy. John Collins is here. Bradley Beal's already done. That was your big get for the year. And so this team is already really old. I think it's time that they blow it up if they're just straight up waiving Chris Paul. And I don't know if that's something they'll do, but they need to get assets back in return for this and pray that they start winning some basketball games to avoid the OKC Thunder getting the number one pick. But again, the Clippers did this with Blake Griffin by trading him to the Pistons, seemingly out of the blue. They've now cut Chris Paul. This seems to be an issue with this organization, that they don't treat their players very well. So why would you come play for the Los Angeles Clippers? Now, there have been some reports this morning that Chris Paul is not on speaking terms with Ty Lue. ESPN reporting that his leadership style clashed with Tyronn Lue and other Clippers front office members, but it's a vet being a vet. That's who Chris Paul is. I mean, why are you bringing him in if that's not what you want him to do? To me, that just seems like he is trying to be a vet for this team, granted of a bunch of vets, but for any of the young guys there, this is what Chris Paul does. He's trying to get these guys to be better, and I don't see why you do this. Even if you're frustrated with this is who he is. You know that. Now, for what's next for Chris Paul, I really don't know. He has already announced that this will be his last year, so I'm not quite sure if he is willing to go play somewhere else outside of LA. Potentially he goes down the street to the Los Angeles Lakers, which could be a pretty interesting fit for him. Again, I mean, we're looking at him as a role player at this point in his career, which 14 minutes a game this year so far. I don't think he's looking for a big role anymore. Like I mentioned, I would love to see him playing for my Wolves. Any contender, I think, should take a look at him and at least call him and see if he's willing to come play the rest of the season for them. I think also a team that potentially could benefit from him is the Milwaukee Bucks. You have Giannis, who is also potentially on his way out as he's scrubbed all his social media, which is his own little thing. but bringing Chris Paul could potentially give you a little bit more stability at the point guard position. You have some really good young guys, especially Ryan Rollins. He could just be a good vet for them as well. Good locker room guy. Again, he has a style that may come off as like aggressive, and not a lot of NBA fans like him because of his knowledge of the rules and how he'll get into the refs with it and stuff like that. But he is still a really good player. I think he can still benefit some playoff teams, even in his 40s. Yeah, it's just crazy to find out at 2 a.m. in the morning that Chris Paul has been waived in the middle of a road stretch, which, by the way, some of the next road games were pretty near Charlotte, which is where his career started, his hometown, all that. I mean, it's just kind of crazy that this is when they decided to do this. And if this is it for Chris Paul, I mean, very stunning end to his career. This is a guy that should have a ring, never got over the hump to get a ring. Probably one of the best players in NBA history to not win a championship, but I hope he does find somewhere to play the rest of the year where he can get that ring. So for the Clippers, I don't know what you're going to do where with this new roster spot, who you're going to add that's going to make a big difference. I think you have bigger issues with this roster than just Chris Paul. And again, this seems to be an issue with the organization, so I don't know why any free agents would even look your way to solve this long term. So have fun being a bottom feeder and just feeding OKC picks for the next couple of years. And for Chris Paul, he's got all the power in the world to either end his career like this or maybe go out with a potential championship run, which I hope he does end up doing. Kind of crazy. Was looking forward to recording another video today. However, this is more recent, so I wanted to get this out, and then I finally finished my Utah Jazz video, which is supposed to come out before the beginning of the year, but now is going to come out here very shortly alongside this one. So more content is coming soon now as school is starting to wind down just a little bit before Christmas, which gives me a little bit more time to get some videos out. So yeah, pretty crazy news to come out on a random early December Wednesday, but we will see what the future holds for Chris Paul. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you're new. Other than that, I'm out. Peace.